July 10th, 1460. The sky over Northampton isn't just raining, it is weeping. A violent summer storm tears across the meadows of Delapré Abbey, turning the earth into a sucking brown quagmire. Thunder rolls, but it is not the thunder of artillery. It is the anger of the heavens. In the mud, thousands of men in heavy plate armor struggle to keep their footing, their visors streaming with water. They are staring down a disaster. The ground, which should have been a firm field for a steady advance, has dissolved into a slurry that grips ankles and swallows boots. This is the friction of war in its rawest form. This is the moment technology fails. The Lancastrian gunners stand frantic over their monsters of iron and wood. They hold the slow matches, the fire that should ignite the powder and send death screaming into the enemy ranks. But the powder is a wet black sludge. The fuses hiss and die. The great guns, the serpentines and bombards, meant to be the decisive weapon of the age, sit impotent in the mud. The pride of the Royal Army is silent, their terrifying potential washed away by the rain, leaving the defenders staring out at the approaching wall of steel with sudden, dawning horror. Out of the driving rain, the enemy emerges. Leading them is Richard Neville, the Earl of Warwick, the Kingmaker. Months ago, he was a fugitive. Today, he is an invader. His army is swollen with men from Kent and London, who are tired of the chaos of King Henry's rule. Marching under the banner of the Bear and Ragged Staff, he moves with a grim, singular purpose. He hasn't come to negotiate. He has come to seize the king, and he has staked his life, his fortune, and the future of his house on this single afternoon. They claim they are not rebels. They claim they have come to save King Henry VI from his evil counselors. It is a lie, a polite fiction designed to mask a naked grab for power. But it is a lie that has brought them here, to the banks of the River Nen, facing a royal army that holds the ultimate trump card, the anointed king himself. Henry II is in the camp, the living embodiment of God's will on earth. To fight against him is to fight against the natural order, a fact that weighs heavily on every soul in the Yorkist ranks. Behind his ramparts, the Duke of Buckingham watches the Yorkists advance. He is a man of the old order, confident in the sanctity of his position. He has built a fortress in the meadow, a deep, flooded ditch and walls topped with sharp stakes. He believes this battle will be a siege in reverse, where the Yorkists will break themselves against his fortifications. He sees the rain as a nuisance, not a disaster, blinded by arrogance and unaware that his primary advantage, his artillery, has already been neutralized by the storm. He is certain of victory, but he is standing in a trap. Buckingham has rejected every attempt at negotiation, with a violence that shocked the heralds. When Warwick sent bishops to beg for an audience with the king, Buckingham turned them away with a sneer. "The Earl of Warwick shall not come to the king's presence," he declared, "and if he comes, he shall die." He is certain of victory, blinded by his own arrogance and the belief that a fortified camp is impregnable. But he has fatally underestimated two things: the power of the weather to disrupt his technology and the fragility of the loyalty of the men standing on his own right flank. Warwick knows he cannot win a drawn-out siege. He needs a shock, a decisive blow that cracks the defensive shell before the royal army can react. He sends a final message, stripped of all diplomatic niceties and pretense. "At 2 o'clock, I will speak with the king, or I will die." It is an ultimatum and a death wish wrapped in one. As the church bells of Northampton chime the hour, ringing out over the sound of the rain, the Yorkist columns begin their advance. They move with a grim purpose, knowing there is no turning back from this treason. The young Edward, Earl of March, a giant of a boy standing over 6'4", commands the flank. He is unproven, a teenager in his first true command, splashing through the rising water of the valley. The rain beats against his face, blinding him, but he pushes forward, his long legs eating up the ground. He represents the future of the House of York, young, charismatic, and ruthless. The plan relies on speed, on hitting the line before the Lancastrians can adjust. But mostly, it relies on a secret signal, a patch of fabric on a soldier's arm that will turn the tide of history. The Yorkist infantry hits the ditch. The water is deeper than they expected, the mud slicker and more treacherous. Men slide back, weighed down by brigandines and mail, scrabbling at the wet earth as Lancastrian arrows begin to fall among them. The artillery is silent, yes, but the archers are still deadly, even with wet bowstrings. For a moment, the assault falters. The fortress in the rain is doing its job. The stakes at the top of the rampart look insurmountable, a wall of wood and iron that separates the rebels from their prize. From his position in the center, the Duke of Buckingham feels a surge of triumph. The rebels are stuck in the mud, exposed and vulnerable to his archers. He signals his right flank to hold firm, to repel the boarders and drive them back into the river. But the commander of that flank is Lord Grey of Ruthin. And Lord Grey is not looking at Buckingham or the king. He is looking at the struggling Yorkists, specifically at the men led by young Edward. He is waiting for the moment when the betrayal will inflict the maximum amount of damage. Lord Grey is embroiled in a bitter property dispute with a rival Lancastrian lord, the Duke of Exeter. He cares more about a manor house in Bedfordshire than the crown of England. In the shadows, days before the battle, Warwick offered him a deal. Betray the king, and we will give you the land. It is a transaction of pure cynicism. Now, amidst the noise and the mud, Grey makes his choice. He chooses his property over his honor, deciding that the House of Lancaster can no longer give him what he wants. As Edward's men claw at the slippery banks, expecting a spear to the face, they see something impossible. The soldiers on the ramparts do not strike down. They do not thrust their weapons. Instead, they reach down. They extend their hands. A cry goes up, not of war, but of welcome. The men wearing the badge of the Black Ragged Staff, Grey's men, begin to haul the enemy up the walls. The defenders have become the attacker's ladder. The fortress hasn't been breached by force. The gates have been opened from the inside by greed. The psychological shock is more devastating than any cannonade. The Lancastrian line doesn't just break, it evaporates. One moment, the defenders are secure behind their walls. The next, thousands of armed Yorkists are pouring into the camp through the gap Grey has created. The integrity of the defense is gone. The Yorkists are inside the perimeter, appearing like ghosts out of the rain. The battle transforms instantly from a siege into a rout. There is no front line anymore, only a confused mass of men fighting for their lives in the mud. The cry of treason ripples down the line, shattering morale faster than any arrow storm. Men who are ready to die for their king are not ready to die for a commander who has just switched sides. The cohesion of the royal army dissolves instantly. The battle transforms from a military engagement into a chaotic slaughter. The Yorkists are rolling up the line from the inside, pushing the confused defenders back against the swollen River Nene. The rain continues to hammer down, washing the blood into the mud, creating a slip and slide of horror. Warwick has issued strict orders: spare the commons, kill the lords. The Yorkist knights move through the chaos with terrifying precision. They are not fighting a general melee, they are headhunting. They are looking for the heraldic banners of the king's favourites. The Duke of Buckingham, realizing too late the scale of the disaster, rallies his household guard outside the king's royal tent. He knows this is the end. There is no escape, no quarter asked or given. He prepares to die defending the man he refused to let Warwick see. Buckingham dies fighting, cut down in the mud, his grand strategy undone by rain and greed. The Earl of Shrewsbury, a legendary name in English warfare, falls nearby, his armour smashed by Yorkist poleaxes. Viscount Beaumont, the first Viscount of England, joins them in death. It is a surgical decapitation. In less than 30 minutes, the entire ruling class of the Lancastrian faction is wiped out, their bodies left to be trampled into the mire of their own camp, their blood mingling with the rain. For the common soldiers, the terror is absolute. Trapped between the advancing Yorkist steel and the raging river, panic takes hold. Hundreds throw themselves into the River Nene, desperate to swim to safety, but they are wearing padded jacks and heavy boots. The current, swollen by the summer storm, grabs them. The chroniclers will write that more men died drowning in the brown waters of the Nene than fell by the sword. The mill at Sandford becomes choked with corpses. The watery fortress has become a watery grave. In the center of this maelstrom, silence reigns. King Henry VI sits in his tent. He is a man of piety, a man who detests war, lost in the fog of his own mental fragility. He hears the screams, the clash of steel, the roar of the rain, but he does not draw a sword. He waits. He prays. The flap of his tent is thrown open. It is not a great lord who finds him, but a common archer named Henry Mountfort. The King of England is taken prisoner by a nobody. Moments later, the Yorkist lords, Warwick, March, and Fauconberg, arrive. They are covered in the blood of the king's friends. They drop to their knees. In a display of breathtaking hypocrisy, they bow their heads and pledge their loyalty to the man they have just captured. They tell him they have saved him. They tell him the traitors are dead. The king, bewildered and alone, can do nothing but nod. He is a puppet, passed from one set of hands to another, his crown secure, but his power gone. The battle is over. It lasted barely half an hour, 30 minutes to dismantle a regime, 30 minutes to capture a king. The Yorkists strip the camp of its riches, but their greatest prize is the person of Henry VI. They parade him back to London, not in chains, but in a procession that highlights his captivity just as effectively. Warwick walks before him, bearing the sword of state, a visual declaration that while Henry may wear the crown, Warwick wields the power. And Lord Grey, the architect of the victory, gets his manor. But the victory at Northampton is a poisoned chalice. By capturing the king and killing his moderate advisors, Warwick has removed the buffer between the factions. He has radicalized the war. When the Duke of York returns from Ireland weeks later, he marches into Parliament and lays his hand on the empty throne. The lords stare in silence. They are not ready for a new king. This overreach leads to the bizarre Act of Accord, disinheriting Henry's son and guaranteeing that the Queen will fight to the death. The legacy of those 30 minutes in the rain is not peace, but escalation. Northampton taught the English nobility that a fortified camp is a coffin if your friends are for sale. It taught them that artillery is useless when the heavens open. As the sun sets over Delapré Abbey, the crows begin to gather on the empty ramparts of the fortress that fell from within. A dynasty has been broken not by the roar of cannons, but by the whisper of treason. The Wars of the Roses have only just begun. This was the Battle of Northampton, a kingdom lost in half an hour, history turned by a rain cloud and a grudge. But its echoes went far beyond the mud of Delapré. Archaeological finds, including one of the earliest cannonballs ever discovered in England, stand as silent witnesses to this failed experiment in firepower. The battle marked the death of medieval chivalry and the birth of a more ruthless transactional warfare where loyalty was auctioned to the highest bidder. It set the stage for the bloodbath of Towton and the rise of the Yorkist dynasty. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the treachery and tactics of the Wars of the Roses, be sure to like and subscribe for more lost chapters of history.